Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going to try and change the way you look at a construction site. When you drive past those massive cranes, the deep pits, the thousands of workers, it looks like a feat of engineering. And it is. But underneath all that, there's something else holding it all together.
It's not the foundation you pour, it's the foundation you sign.
Exactly. We are looking at the operating system for a billion-dollar machine. We're analyzing a document called Employer and Contractor Administration, which is document E3.4.
Right.
Now, that title, I know it sounds like a cure for insomnia, but if you're in the industry, you know this document is the difference between a profitable project and, well, a disaster.
That's really not an exaggeration. We think of construction as just moving dirt and steel, but on these mega projects, power plants, huge infrastructure, it's really an information management game. This document, E3.4, it's the rule book. It's designed to bolt onto the FDIC Silver Book.
Okay, so let's set that context. The FIDIC Silver Book is like the Constitution, right? The high-level laws. But this document we're looking at, this is the civil procedure. It's how you actually follow those laws day to day.
That's a perfect analogy. The Silver Book might say the contractor must notify the employer of a delay. That's the law. But E3.4 tells you which form to use, who signs it, and which digital portal to upload it to. It removes all the ambiguity.
And the first thing that struck me reading this is just how rigid it is. It feels so restrictive. But then you realize on a project this size, you can't just send an email. You can't have a handshake deal.
Oh, absolutely not. In a project with, 5,000 workers, millions of dollars flowing every week, I sent you an email is not a legal defense.
Yeah.
Chaos is the default. This document is the force field that keeps that chaos out.
So let's talk about the first layer of that force field, the system itself. The source material talks about something called PIMS.
The Project Information Management System, yeah.
And they really hammer this home.
Yeah.
It is not optional. The contractor must use this system. It's the digital backbone.
And this is often the first, point of friction. Contractors are used to living in their email inbox. But E3.4 says, nope, if it isn't in PIMS, it effectively didn't happen. The document even specifies they have to be readable PDF files.
Which seems like such a tiny detail, but I'm guessing that's to stop people uploading, blurry photos of handwritten notes.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
It's all about data integrity and searchability. 3 years from now, in a lawsuit, you can't be squinting at a JPEG of a coffee-stained napkin. You need a searchable digital record.
There's also the security aspect I found fascinating. The contractor has to keep a detailed register of who has access to PIMS, and they have to update it monthly. It feels less like a construction site and more like a military base.
It effectively is. Think about the liability. Information control is project control. What if a project manager gets fired on a Tuesday, but their access isn't revoked? And on Wednesday, they log in and reject a critical instruction out of spite.
The contractor's on the hook.
The contractor's on the hook. By forcing that monthly update, the employer is shifting that whole burden of digital security onto the contractor. You have to know who holds the keys.
So we have the digital keys. What about the physical keys? Getting onto the site itself, I think most people just assume once the ink is dry on the contract, you roll up the bulldozers and start digging.
And that is a rookie mistake that can cost you dearly. In this world, signing the contract does not give you the right to enter the land. Possession of site is a formal legal transfer.
And the document points to subclause 2.1 and the specific access to site form. And it's so granular, it asks for the date, location, specific coordinates.
Because there's this terrifying legal limbo between signing the contract and getting that form signed. If a contractor drives a truck onto the site before that form is signed by the employer's rep and that truck hits something,
they're essentially trespassing.
Technically, yes. And your insurance company will look for any reason not to pay. Did you have legal possession of the site? Well, no. Claim denied.
So that one piece of paper is the starting gun. Until it's signed, nobody moves.
Correct. It's the line in the sand where responsibility transfers.
Okay, so we're legally on site. We have our PIMS login. Now we need to know who's actually running the show. The document gets really deep into appointments and the chain of command.
Yeah, sections 3 and 4, the employer's representative and the contractor's representative.
And these are more than just job titles, right?
Oh, absolutely. They are statutory roles within the contract's universe. They are the only two people who can legally bind their companies. The CEO could walk on site and say something, but it might not matter. But if the contractor's representative says it, it's binding.
But here's the reality check. One person can't watch a whole mega project, so they have to delegate.
Subclause 3.2. And this is one of the most practical, but also one of the most dangerous parts of the whole document,
Dangerous. How?
if you don't pay attention. So the document has a notice of delegation form. It lets the representative give duties to an assistant. But did you see the fine print on that form?
I did, and I circled it. It says basically that unless it's agreed somewhere else, these assistants can't make financial determinations or amend the contract.
That's the scope creep firewall. Let's play it out. An assistant from the employer comes to your site engineer and says, hey, move this wall 3 feet to the left. We'll pay you for it.
So you move the wall.
You move the wall. You spend 10 grand doing it. Then you send the bill. And the employer rejects it. Why?
Because the assistant didn't have the authority to promise the money.
Exactly. The assistant could inspect the wall, maybe issue an instruction on safety, but they couldn't amend the contract price. If you didn't check their notice of delegation before you moved that dirt, you just worked for free.
That is just brutal. It's telling the contractor, trust no one, check the paperwork every single time.
It is the only way to protect yourself.
Okay, so assuming we're following the rules, how does work actually get directed? There's the instruction form, subclause 3.4.
This is the standard way things happen. The employer wants something, they issue an instruction.
What I found interesting, though, was the reporting side of it. The document demands an instruction register and histogram, not just a list, but a bar chart. Why does the visual part matter?
It's a health check for the project. A histogram shows you the frequency and volume of instructions. If I'm looking at a project dashboard and that bar chart is low and flat, things are stable.
But if you see a big spike,
If I see a massive spike in month 18, I know something's wrong. Why 50 instructions this month? Did the design change? Did we find something unexpected on site?
it's a visual alarm bell.
It lets you see the chaos before it swallows the budget. It's data visualization for contract management.
Now let's flip it. What if the contractor needs clarity? That's where the technical query, or TQ, comes in.
Subclause 5.1, the TQ is the daily bread and butter. You know, the drawing says use blue paint, blue is discontinued. Can we use green? That's a TQ.
And the form itself is clever. It's split into Part A and Part B.
Right. Part A is the contractor's question. Part B is the employer's answer. Simple.
And the contractor has to classify the query. Essential, urgent, clarification, deviation.
Which forces the contractor to triage. It stops that boy who cried wolf problem, where every single question is marked urgent. Because if everything's urgent, nothing is.
But the most elegant part of this, and I say elegant loosely, is the loop.
Ah, yes, the revision loop.
The document says if the contractor isn't happy with the answer in Part B, they don't start a new form. They take the same document, bump the revision number up, and add their follow-up question.
And that is so critical for the archive. You don't want to be in arbitration 5 years from now trying to piece together a story from 40 different emails with subject lines like Ria, quick question.
Yeah.
You want one PDF, TQ number 405, showing every question and every answer in order.
It creates a single source of truth for that issue.
It forces a structured conversation. You can't branch off into side arguments. You stay on the form.
That structure is satisfying. But let's move to the most chaotic part of any project, changes. Or, as the contract calls them, variations.
Clause 13, the root of all evil.
Projects rarely go exactly to plan, so the document lays out this little dance. There's the variation request from the employer, or the variation proposal from the contractor.
Right. It's either we want you to change this or we suggest changing this.
I was looking at the variation proposal form, and it asks for a lot more than just a price.
The price is almost secondary. The killer field on that form, the one that really destroys contractors, is the one labeled effect on contract schedule.
And why is that the killer?
Because in construction, time is money. Liquidated damages for finishing late can be hundreds of thousands of dollars a day.
Ouch.
So imagine the employer asks you to add a helipad on the roof. You, the contractor, you fill out the proposal. You write down cost, $500,000. But you leave the effect on schedule field blank, or you write none.
Thinking you can squeeze it in?
Exactly. But building that helipad delays the project by 2 weeks. You finish late, the employer hits you with damages. You say, but wait, the helipad caused the delay. And they pull out that form and say, right here, you signed that there would be NO effect on the schedule.
And you're trapped.
You waived your right to more time. That form is a legal trap for the optimistic.
And once that variation form is signed by both sides, it essentially rewrites the contract for that specific item.
It does. New price, new completion date, it's set in stone.
But what happens when they don't agree? What if the contractor says, this delay is your fault, and the employer says, no, it's yours? This is where we get to the dark side of the document. conflict resolution.
Subclause 20.2, claims. This is where projects live or die.
I notice in the flowcharts the number 28 days comes up over and over.
That is the time bar. It is the single most lethal weapon the employer has. The rule is simple. If something happens that costs you time or money, you have 28 days to issue a notice of claim.
From when it happened?
From when you became aware of it. If you wait 29 days.
What happened?
Under a strict FIDIC reading, you get nothing. You're time barred. You lose your right to be paid for that event. The logic is you denied the employer a chance to mitigate the problem because you kept quiet.
So the notice of claim form is just a placeholder, just raising your hand to stop the clock.
That's it. It's a short form.
Huh.
Something happened, we're claiming. The real heavy lifting comes later with the fully detailed claim.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It's a forensic report. The form asked for contemporary records, cause and effect analysis, detailed cost calculations. You have to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, why you deserve that money.
So the contractor submits this monster report. The employer reads it. And let's say they still don't agree.
Then we go to subclause 3.5. First, they try to talk it out with a consultation notice. If that fails, the employer makes a determination. They basically slam the gavel and say, I have decided, and I'm paying you zero.
And this leads to my favorite term in this whole document, the notice of dissatisfaction.
The NOD.
It sounds so polite, doesn't it? I'd like to formally register my dissatisfaction, sir, but this is basically a declaration of war.
It is a save game button. If the employer issues a determination and you don't file a notice of dissatisfaction within the time limit, usually 13 or 28 days, you have legally accepted their decision.
Even if you hate it.
Even if it bankrupts you. Silence is acceptance. The NOD is the only thing that keeps the dispute alive so you can take it to arbitration later.
It's just incredible. You can shout in a meeting, but if you don't file that specific piece of paper, you legally agreed.
The paperwork is the reality.
So, assuming we survive all that, we eventually finish the building, the finish line.
Subclause 10.1, taking over.
The contractor submits a notice of completion, the employer inspects.
And usually they'll issue a notice of rejection.
Which sounds harsh.
It's pretty standard. The form requires them to list exactly why. The paint is peeling, the HVAC is noisy, the contractor fixes it, and they try again.
If it passes, we get the TOC, the taking over certificate. Why is that so pivotal?
It's the moment the risk flips. The day the TOC is signed, responsibility for the building transfers back to the employer. If it burns down the next day, it's their insurance problem, not yours. And it usually triggers a huge payment.
But looking at the source, it's still not truly over, is it? There's a tail.
The defect notification period, the DNP.
And of course, there's a form for that.
Of course. For a year or two after completion, if a pipe bursts, the employer uses the defect notification form to call you back. You are still on the hook.
So when are you finally free?
Subclause 11.9, the performance certificate.
Golden ticket.
That is the one and only document that says the contractor has met all obligations. Once you hold that, you can finally close the book on the project.
Yeah, before we wrap up, I want to touch on the human element because this is also robotic. But Section 19 brings it back to people.
The contractor's personnel, yeah.
It mandates an onboarding program. The contractor has to train their own staff on, and this is the meta part, on the explanation session of these contract administration requirements.
You have to train your staff on how to use all the forms we just talked about. You can't just throw them in the deep end.
And then there's this really specific requirement for key personnel. Your project manager, your construction manager. They're required to have had specific FIDIC Silver Book contract training.
And they have to prove it with a certificate.
That feels like a real shift. It's not enough to just be a good engineer anymore.
No, it's not. The employer is saying the biggest risk isn't bad concrete, it's bad administration. If your project manager doesn't understand the difference between a notice of claim and a variation proposal, they can lose the company millions just by missing a deadline.
Competence is now a contract deliverable.
Exactly. They're ensuring against administrative incompetence.
And finally, it all comes together with the contract management dashboard in Section 20.
The vital signs monitor for the project.
It requires the contractor to submit bar charts for everything. Instructions, TQs, claims, you name it.
It turns all this paper into a visual health check. If you look at that dashboard and see 50 pending TQs and 10 unresolved claims, you don't need to visit the site to know the project is failing. The data shows you the relationships are breaking down.
It quantifies the chaos.
It makes the invisible visible.
So We've unpacked all this, the forms, the rigid flowcharts, the unforgiving deadlines. I mean, it feels like a mountain of bureaucracy.
It is. It absolutely is.
But is it? Is it a necessary bureaucracy?
I would argue it's actually a conflict reduction engine.
How so? It feels like it's designed to create conflict. I am formally dissatisfied.
But think about the alternative. Construction is emotional. High pressure, high stakes, huge egos.
Yeah.
If you manage that with emails and shouting matches, it gets personal so fast. You lied to me. You promised me this.
Right.
By forcing every single disagreement into a rigid form, a notice of dissatisfaction, and every change into a variation proposal, you strip the emotion out. You force everyone to stick to the facts, the dates, the contract clauses.
You depersonalize the fight.
Exactly. You aren't yelling at me. You are processing subclause 3.5. We can hate each other personally, but the forms allow the machine to keep moving forward. The bureaucracy creates a buffer that actually saves the commercial relationship.
That's a really powerful way to look at it. The paperwork is the peacekeeper.
In a very twisted, bureaucratic way, yes.
Well, there you have it. The secret operating system of a mega project. It's not just about building something huge. It's about building a paper trail that can withstand a hurricane.
Or a lawyer.
Or a lawyer. Usually scarier. So,
if you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.